Is it Thursday already? Then it must be time for a Lean Into Artcast, the show where a couple of visual storytellers, and perform, engage with, physically enact, or otherwise wrestle with a topic that relates to visual storytelling. And then we back off and look at it a little bit more abstractly and think about why we struggle so hard with this stuff. After all, we think about visual storytelling very hard, so that you will think about visual storytelling very hard too. My name is Jerzy Rhodes, cartoonist and teaching artist. The other guy is...
Hey, I am Rob Stenzinger, a designer, UX and games and otherwise, and coder. And Jersey, now I'm thinking about, like, what if there is there like an equivalent wrestling podcast to Lean Into Art where, I mean, I guess it would involve wrestling and then thinking about it, right? and I mean that'd be the direct analog.
You know what the problem is, though, is that neither of us would be the heel commentator.
Oh, sure. Well, that's true. I mean, you inherently would have a bigger crew on that sort of podcast.
You got to have the Jesse Ventura guy,
Yeah.
who roots for the Bobby Heenan guy, and then
and then you need this other announcer too, I guess, right? Because they're sort of verbally playing out this narrative, and I guess we're a more efficient version of that sort of podcast is what it comes down to.
That's like the way you think. That's a good way of putting it. That's a nice spin, Rob.
Yeah.
So we're both visual storytellers in different fields, and every week we check in and do this little bit of engaging with the topic, thinking about it, and then going home and to make more stuff. And we'll talk more about the stuff that we make in a little while, but for now, what are we talking about this week, Rob?
Well, we are actually doing a sort of this recurring thing where we'll visit and think about the sort of things that we're using to sort of fuel and recharge with, like, we call it reading, watching, playing. And that's, there's typically something in there. It's like, well, why is this of interest right now and all that? And it can be some fun stuff that maybe you'll be shouting from the sidelines, yay, or going like, no, that's such a waste of time. Who knows? Either way, that's awesome to have giant feelings about those kind of things, because it's really helpful to get into stuff and work out your things. We may be talking. Well, speaking of working out your things, we actually have the return of the curveball.
Yep.
What's a curveball, Jersey?
Oh, this hails back. This is years ago we used to do this, where the top of an episode we would sort of reflect on what's happened this week to both of us, as in the work that we're doing. What are we working on this week, and what are we struggling with? And one of us would try to challenge the other with some kind of question to help us unbox what we've been going through during the week. And sometimes, like, Curveball was always meant just to be like a mental warm-up exercise that would take like 10 minutes, and sometimes took like a half hour or more. Sometimes I think there was a couple episodes where it took over most of the show as we really wrangled with it. But
well, and it could be depending on, because I would when I crafted a curveball, I would do it with the knowledge that I really want to hear what your thoughts are on this topic. And I know I'll benefit from it, but I may or may not be struggling with this right now. But, like, something you said recently, I want this to. I know this will be great to dig into.
Yeah. That I remember constructing a couple that way too. But also, I would construct some where it's like, boy, I think this is where I land on this. I sure would like to hear what Rob's point of view is to help me triangulate, how I feel about this thing. So there was partially that too. There was certainly a very selfish angle for me in developing some curveballs.
And also, at least a few times, they're like a leaner. Someone from the audience would be like, "Hey, here's a curveball idea."
That's true.
So always a fun possibility.
So just for old time's sake, we're bringing it back. Just who knows? We're playing with the show. We're playing, but the format's going to remain the same. 2 segments, right? Mm-hmm. But first, reading, watching, playing. Oh, I need to play some bridge music. Are you ready to dive into it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, let's go.
Okay. How about... think about Tater Pie. things to eat.
You like to laugh while eating or laugh about eating, right?
Eating's the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, and songs about food are especially dear to me. But yeah, this is eating is an active thing.
Mm-hmm.
What are we consuming? What are we reading, watching, playing? What are we putting inside of our heads? What are we
Mm.
consuming with our minds?
It's a
Um,
good connection. Hmm.
I was doing this is totally an aside, but I was doing a live stream. I've been doing live streams every Friday, and just is like doing warm up sketches. And I found myself, I do the sketch before, like the pencil sketch, and then I ink it during the live stream. And I found myself talking through what I'm doing, and I'm coming up with all these justifications for everything that's on the page, like, oh, the composition does this, and I put that there because I want to play with this. And then like I had this moment last week where I paused and said, I don't know if that actually was going on in my brain 10 minutes ago when I was working out the pencil sketch. This is me sort of justifying it after the fact. Memory's a
Mm-hmm.
funny thing. I don't trust it anymore. Who knows if this was really the motivation for doing this thing. Same thing with the tater pie thing. I might have been making stuff up on the spot. Anyway,
Well,
um,
you're finding connections, and so I mean that's a lot of times what storytellers do, is looking back on stuff happened. Why this happened? I've got a plausible thing. You just said an explanation, and I just explained on top of it. No, tater pie. That happens.
let's just see
Uh,
how long we can keep this going.
right. All right. This is an explanation snowball. We got to stop this thing before it takes over the show.
But you're right. That it could be thought of as a modeling exercise. This is what visual storytellers do. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, who wants to go first? What have you been reading, watching, or playing, or doing, Rob?
Well, let's see. I would say as far as like that sort of time to, you know, I guess it's often recharging and just having some fun. That's what I throw into playing. For me, playing is often, but not always, video games, and that's what came to mind for
I
today.
saw a Tanuki suit on your Instagram feed.
Yeah. Oh boy, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe for the Nintendo Switch is pretty great. It's a mixed bag because I have played through Mario Kart for the Nintendo Wii, and I wish that somehow all that achievement would move over because I've unlocked some cars and things and I had preferences, and so yeah, but that aside, it's still amazingly fun to race, and now different possibilities for multiplayer, right? Because literally you can carry the little Nintendo Switch, disconnect the two side controllers, and now you can have two-player races with the same little portable thing. I recently was with some folks who um, we were like playing on one screen, and then like someone came along and needed that screen, and we literally just that the system is so built for like flexible moving around, hitting, putting it to sleep, basically walking over to another TV, hooking it up, and just continuing, right? I mean, amazing. Like other generations, other systems. And I know I'm talking about the system, but it's also in context of playing that sort of multiplayer game. Oh my gosh, well, how flexible and sort of friendly is that? Where
Yeah.
that's an option. I don't know that how I
No,
yeah.
I'm with you. I haven't used the Switch yet, but like ever since I got a Chromecast and a Roku, it's like the thought of having to pull a disc out of a box and put it into a machine and wait for a load screen and wait for, like go through the FBI warning and then to get to a menu screen. It's just like what kind of savages are we? What kind of brutes are we living like in order to have to like get out of a chair like, when I could just like have my phone go flick and it's on a screen? Game changer,
Yeah.
right? When it's like that simple and that effortless. Uh,
And I mean, and there are times when devices and content providers get it right, and
yeah,
it's really approachable and fun.
that's awesome.
Um, so yeah, Mario Kart 8. Are you familiar? Have you played Mario Kart 8? Regular or
No, I
deluxe? Okay.
so I've played the first one for the SNES,
Mm-hmm.
which I think we purchased for our Wii years ago. And then we have it for the 3DS. Which one is that? Is that 7?
So what would that be? I suppose, yeah, the 3DS. Um, yeah, I think that was Mario Kart 7. So that introduced a lot of things that Mario Kart 8 and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe brought, carried forward, right? Like cuz you had the cart the gliding stuff and
Yeah, hang gliders and all,
yeah.
like different parachutes and things
Yeah.
that for different cars and different characters, right?
Mhm.
Um, and also the being able to compete against people on the internet. I've never played against friends across the internet. And I know some people
Mhm.
do that, but like I did the thing where it's like, oh, we're looking for people all around the world to play against. Um, that felt totally different and fun, right? Because
Mhm.
that's the kind of then I can like have like a Mario Kart party, even if it's like 11 o'clock at night, and as I'm unwinding for the day, you know. Um, so
Yeah, that's
yeah,
really cool. Like, I mean, I've I found that the folks that I typically will connect with online, I are a bit more skilled than I am on average. But yeah, it is fun. They make it pretty easy, and yeah, I'm going to need to test that whole what's it like to exchange friend codes nowadays, because it was this little bit of a rigmarole in the past. I don't know if it's the same, but on other game systems, there's the whole matchmaking and friends list thing is a bit more convenient, but and sometimes to its detriment, right? Where
mhm.
like if you really want to be just on your own and not bothered, or I mean, if you're providing this as something for your kids to enjoy or what have you, it's like that that there's this extra um, the barrier is helpful in that case.
Mhm.
So anyway, that's yeah, that okay, that's one thing. How about are you playing anything of late?
Now I'm still finishing up the deadline, but um, the other day I've been having an intern coming over to help with the flats on this Rockets book, and one of the days last week when we were to get together, we had to go meet outside of my studio, and so we didn't have awesome internet. Uh, and so we finished our pages and we were uploading them. Now on my network, it'd be like, we're gonna upload 5 pages. It takes like 2 minutes. Boom, it's gone. But we were on like, you know, less robust network service. So like it was like it's gonna be a half hour. I was like, so we got nothing to do for a half hour. What are we gonna do? And so she says we should play Kirby together. What was it? Was it Kirby? Oh, I don't remember which one it was, but it was one where you can play together. There's two Kirby's, and then, and forgive
Ah,
me, I'm not deeply entrenched in the Kirby mythos, but there's Meta Knight. Isn't that the character's name?
oh, isn't that when Kirby just eats a knight?
Uh,
I
there's
don't know.
this. It looks like Kirby, but with a knight mask, and he's got this awesome sword, and he has
Yeah, I
bat
mean,
wings, and he
so
can fly.
speaking of eating, right? So you talk about, we're like what we're eating is entertainment. Kirby is the video game character embodiment of that philosophy, right?
Actually,
Um,
oh my gosh, you're right.
yes,
Yes. So here's the guy who throws the sword that flips around like a boomerang, and you eat him, and then you can do what he does. Yeah,
sure.
cannibal
That's a
hero.
valuable
Um,
lesson.
but but it was and I also I mean so like we played Kirby for a while, but then we also played Super Smash Brothers, which I've never played any of the Super Smash Brothers games. Yeah,
Whoa.
and then Glory of Glories, I got to be told by a 14-year-old that I was pretty good at Smash Brothers, which maybe she was being kind, but being told by a teenager that you're good at a video game feels surprisingly is surprisingly ego boosting. Uh,
That's really cool.
but
Huh.
I forget which version of Smash Brothers it was, but it had Samus, of course. Samus, I got
Oh,
excited, and it was like,
nice.
oh, you can
Yep.
play Samus in the Zero suit or Samus in the armored suit, and different abilities come with each. Um, but yeah, so I had a half hour where I got to play video games for the first time in a long time,
Hmm.
and playing with another person and being able to like talk about what you're doing while you're playing the game. That actually, I miss that. I miss those days of my early 20s when you had unstructured time with your friends to just like spend on a whole bunch of different games. That was good.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean that kind of experience cemented my love for just sort of in the same room multiplayer, right? So couch based, whatever competitive things or co op things. Um, I'm super excited for the Switch. I know it's a chunk of money and whatever, and um, I was you know. And also, it's logistically challenging. So I guess it's not even easy to get right now. But it's built to make it easy to do that kind of multiplayer, and not even having to be all at the same couch, big TV, everything tethered. It's just pretty much anywhere in the world. I know that's a giant commercial for that game system, but like to be able to have that kind of harder to obtain experience of people together playing a thing on a screen, that's I'm I don't know. I hope that leads to like a resurgence.
Well, and you know what? I'm actually. I mean, I'm sure I speak for a lot of people when I'm actually really interested in your opinion on the experience of using the system because we know that you think about it a lot. And yeah, also the as I was just saying, there's a quintessential part of people gather around a console that you have when you're younger and have a little bit more unstructured time. As you get older, that gets harder to come by. Um, so yeah, that's it. That point of view, that take on it is actually super interesting to me. And like I said, I have every intention of getting it, especially once a Metroid game comes out for it. Shadow Wingtronics Troy is in the chat. Says Meta Knight is a separate character, not one of Kirby's forms. So
Hmm.
I think that was Meta Knight was a character who was kind of a bad guy in an early Kirby game, but then becomes uh, an ally. And there's this neat thing where
Hmm.
when you're playing cooperatively, if there's food floating there, and like in these kinds of cooperative games, if there's food, especially when we play like Golden Axe, right? If one person gets the food, they're the one who gets the power up, right? But in
Mm-hmm.
Kirby, they can like one of them can eat food, then they can hug each other, and then they share the food
What?
energy. Yeah,
Oh, that is the opposite of the cruelty of which I was delightful cruelty of what was it, Gauntlet Legends?
oh,
Where I recently heard someone say that in Gauntlet Legends, essentially they left enough food for one player to be to make it through the adventure, and so you're really fighting for the scraps in that situation. But
right.
and there was no way to hug each other
Right,
and
right.
share
Like
the
so,
energy.
so when she showed me this, she's like, "Oh yeah, come get closer to my character." Then like her character goes boop, and then we hug, and then all of a sudden both of our energy goes up a little bit. And I was like, "That's the greatest thing ever! This
Wow.
is like what I want out of video games."
Oh, that's
Jesse
awesome.
Kaufman is in the chat. He says, "You got me, Rob. Now I'm off to find a Switch and reinstate the video game Fridays of my 20s." There we go.
Oh, yeah. More power
Special
to you, Jesse.
Patreon
Yeah.
video game Fridays.
Ooh, interest. Interesting. We'll have to chat about that on Patreon. Um, because that might be an interesting way to for those inclined as far exchanging friend codes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I like
Mm.
this. All right.
Ah,
What about other media consumption and patterns and stuff?
I don't know. Where do you want to go?
Like how about listening?
Listening. Oh, you really want to talk about that? You see what I put on my list?
I saw, and I'm prouding you.
Yeah. Okay.
Go for it. Like I mean, it sounds intriguing, and
So
let's
I
explore.
don't know where this came from, but in the last month and a half or so, I found myself listening to and by the way, this comes from I have an Amazon Prime account subscription, whatever you want to call it, and with it, I found out that if you get the Amazon Music app, you have like unlimited music, basically like a paid Apple Music account or a paid Google Play account kind of thing, where it's like here's thousands of songs you can listen to. Um, and
Hmm.
somehow I landed on like 1930s gospel music, and I started playing some of these songs, and
Okay.
like suddenly this playlist grew into hundreds and hundreds of songs, and I'm finding myself listening to while I'm working to like 1930s Southern gospel music.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, and like I haven't spent a lot of time unboxing what that's all about, like because why you like what you like, right? But
Oh,
why
totally.
that, and why like so at such intensity? but it's been on constant, like the Dixie Hummingbirds, the Golden Gate Quartet has been playing in the background a lot in my studio lately.
And so is this? I mean, it sounds like it's somewhat ambient yet somehow intense.
Yeah,
Or okay,
yeah, because it's like it's intense because I think there's something essentially joyous and hopeful about a lot of it. Like it's very bombastic and buoyant, but then also there's ones that are like very much like, we're enduring something right now, right? There's like there's hope coming, but right now things are intense and painful, but never in that kind of nihilistic, what are you gonna do about it kind of way, but more like,
hmm.
but we'll keep on keeping on, I guess.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, I mean, there's this is whole grain of salt and disclaimer here. I'm not a like a fan. I am not a great music theorist, but it's my understanding that the whole it's essentially the Western Church that informed a lot of the sort of like the jobs of the scales and the jobs of note relationships in music,
hmm.
right? So I would imagine things that are somehow like descendants or direct relatives or whatever of music coming from church would be using those principles to
Hmm.
to great effect, right?
Hmm.
So it's like why does a minor chord sound sad,
Yeah.
right? Is it truly inherent in the chord, or is that a design language that we've adapted to, right?
Hmm.
Or both? That I'm not qualified to answer, other than it, share some, you know, I think I'm pretty sure that's where it came from, and was used for those intentions. So like to help create to amplify the effect of speeches and stories.
Hmm. Uh, could be. I mean, that could be part of the reason I'm being attracted to it. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I haven't had time to really unbox it. It was just one of those things where it's like suddenly I found myself like day after day going to the same playlist over and over again, um, and not really just knowing that it feels appealing. So something in the joyously enduring something. Well, I'm on a deadline. That could have a lot to do with it.
Oh wow, yeah, this is the final act
Yeah, it
of
could
a
be.
project,
I hadn't really thought
and you've
about it
got a
that much.
choir backup.
Um, but it was just like when we came up with this topic, like let's do a reading, watching, playing. I went to the apps I've been using to listen to stuff, and I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
what have I been listening to podcasting? Well, we just talked about podcasts a few episodes ago. What have I been listening to in terms of music? And I was like, oh yeah, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of play counts on these tracks. So, um, yeah, Dixie
That's pretty cool.
Hummingbirds and
What
Golden Gate Quartet were two of the big ones that I got a lot of replays on.
what
Um,
app are you using for that?
well, this one was all on the Amazon one
Okay,
because it's got
just
the Prime
Amazon
account.
Music. Okay.
Yeah, just Amazon Music. And it's a pretty decent music app, and it's fairly easy to make playlists. And I made like once I found out I had access to all that music, I made a whole bunch of playlists. But that's the one that has like all the play counts
Mm.
racked up on it, which I thought was pretty interesting. Um, so usually around the middle of the year too is like when I go back to my holiday music playlists as well. Just like in the middle of the year, feeling like I'm missing that time of year kind of thing. So like a lot, any day now, it's going to turn into a lot of old Bing Crosby and the Scrooge soundtrack from the Albert Finney film,
Mm.
um, uh, Burl Lives, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the Rankin Bass specials, that kind of stuff. That usually gets like a couple weeks of solid play, like between June and July.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. In my house, we get a lot of requests for for our internet voice assistant to play to play Frosty the Snowman,
Oh, really?
because there's a lot of for the young ones in the house. Their love for that is not based on a season.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, you do
Right.
live in Minnesota, so snowman is like,
It's true. Snow barely disappeared. Just very recently, moments ago, actually.
It'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
But what about what's been on your playlist lately?
So I recently was exposed to a band called Dub Mood, and one of their songs in particular it's called Chip Tune. Um, and well, I mean, it's essentially so chip tune is a whole genre of music where the instrumentation and some of the feeling of the music is almost similar. Well, or either very or slightly whatever, some range of similar to like background music you would encounter in a video game, right? And then the chip tune is like the kind of instruments that were available to people making, programming video games, where the music wasn't in the early days, it wasn't essentially someone performing on a physical drum set and playing a saxophone or violins. It was these tones generated by a chip that would approximate the jobs of instruments and whatever. And so they're doing that now. So it's funny because it sounds both it sounds so video game like, yet there's aspects of their song where you can tell it's modern, right? You can tell this didn't fall off of an NES cartridge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so anyway, that got me thinking. Something about it reminded me of the Devil's Crush soundtrack. Devil's Crush is a game. Well, whatever. I mean, it's not like it's actively being sold, but it was a game for the TurboGrafx 16 system. That it's an I love that soundtrack, and I don't know if it was just sort of like something that was in general sort of reminding me of that, and I just immediately went to that familiar old fun thing. But like, what I love that there are movements in that soundtrack, and it loops incredibly well in a non. It isn't boring. It's like it's got these mood sections, right? Where there's a brief pull you into the song section, and then sort of a, oh, well, this is what I expect. It's an upbeat. It sounds like a video game soundtrack, but then it ramps up where it's almost like well, it's a lot like a heavy metal song that all of a sudden has this intense bridge that builds and builds and then breaks down and gets mellow. Anyway, and so I just love these arcs to the song. So, anyway, and I highly recommend, if you have a chance to play that video game, to do it. It's essentially a it's a monster themed pinball game, right? But in a two-dimensional classic game system way, right? So you have it's a sequence of boards. It's basically 1, 2, 3 boards high. You shoot the pinball out into the world. You come out on board 2. If you play your cards, and so you have flippers on board 2, flippers on board 3, and flippers way down on board 1. If you play your cards right, you can get way up to board 3, where you can get some great scoring potential. But there's all sorts of activities all throughout the whole each of the 3 boards, and then there's sub boards where you can disappear and go into like a little mini challenge. Anyway, love that game.
So if I can scoot ahead to some of the gameplay.
Yeah.
Come on, aren't you gonna let me do that, YouTube?
Yeah, it's doing some. I see the eyeballs flying around.
Oh, hold on.
Nope.
Trying to get it to work, and it's playing ads. Those aren't ads. Those aren't our ads, so we don't get. Here we go.
Okay.
So is this it, Rob?
So that would be like a one of the mini challenges, and so your goal in this mini challenge would be to use your pinball ball to take out the creatures in that scene. Mm-hmm. And this is the top. This is board 3, the one where it has essentially a big skull and then 2 skeletal hands that can drop balls.
Oh my God, I would have loved this when I was 20.
Oh, it's awesome. I'm way not 20 anymore, and I still love it. But then anyway, then you're seeing a little delightful thing. Like there's these creatures off to the left that are these skeletal knights. Yeah. That on board 2 you can sort of get them to come out of that hallway and then hit them with the ball and whatever until they they fall to your pinball prowess. And anyway, they make a great sound when they get hit with the ball. And yeah, that's whatever. So big love for that game, big love for that song. And then the other thing I was listening to is is another TurboGrafx game. Not surprisingly, it's almost like pulling on this string. This thread has led to related threads, right? So that other thing is a game that was, I mean, it started on other systems, but the version that came out for the TurboGrafx was I mean, it was essentially for the first CD-ROM based home system. You're like, whoa, you may be listening to this and not know what a CD-ROM is, because that its time has come and gone. But like, the games came on CDs, and so they had a track of data for the game, but then they had other space available for like full quality CD songs, right? And yeah, so like East Book 1 and 2, and it's spelled with a letter Y apostrophe S, right? And that's like, I think that's the first RPG that I really played all the way through too. And so, it has a special place in my game experience. But yeah, so there's a playlist that we'll probably link to in the show notes that it links to all the different songs in the what was essentially two games bundled as one on a compact disc.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. YouTube is so good for that, by the way.
Oh,
like, because I mean, I've gotten like a bunch of old NES game soundtracks that way.
It's an awesome resource. Yeah.
Just queued up as playlists in YouTube that I can just like there's a whole and like entire playthroughs, like long playthroughs of the entire game, which I've talked about before as like my way of outsourcing my gameplay. So I don't have time to play games anymore, so I listen or watch somebody else play while I work. Right.
I know what you mean. I've often listened to video game podcasts for that reason, and sometimes, get the same kind of benefit. But so when you pull up like a classic NES song, like what would be an example?
Oh, I got my playlist saved right here. Let me pull up my YouTube page real quick, and I can tell you firsthand what some of them are. Let's see. Metroid Fusion, of course. Dr. Mario.
Oh, I have not heard that soundtrack.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Dr. Mario is one of the games in my house that like every holiday season we break out the old NES, like our 8-bit NES, and we play the living heck out of that. Like for, a couple days. Like that's like all we do for a couple evenings is play Dr. Mario.
I mean, it seems it's like a 2-player sort of Tetris plus, right?
Yeah.
Cool.
But it's matching colors on pills in a pill bottle, and there's like three or four colors of viruses that you're supposed to stop. Yeah, I'm a big fan of puzzle games. I don't know if I've mentioned that before. Blackout was one of my favorite games in the entire world, and we have a Sega Genesis. That's the cartridge one, right?
Yeah.
We have a Sega Genesis, and we have two games for it. We have Shaq Fu, which is Anne's favorite Genesis game, and I have Blackout, which is mine.
Blackout is great. I can't speak to Shaq Fu.
Anne is a champion button masher at Shaq Fu. Let's see. A lot of Metroids. A lot of cartoon playlists. Oh, Resident Evil 2 original soundtrack. Yeah, that takes me back from when I used to play that. The DuckTales NES game soundtrack. Ugh, so good.
Nice.
So yeah.
That's cool. Okay, thanks. I was curious.
Shadow Wings throwing in a resource in here. Let's see. OCRemix.org is primarily for video game song remixes.
Yeah, Overclocked Remix. It's an amazing trove. Yeah, that's a really good one. Thank you. That's like fantastic takes where they'll essentially perform some of these soundtracks we've been describing, but with new instrumentation.
Oh, like Stimage's Metroid album? Have you heard this?
Very much like that, yes.
Oh, God, it's so good.
It totally
So
rocks.
freaking
Yeah.
good. It's called Metroid Metal, I think.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, that one gets some play on my running playlists as well. Like
Oh, what a great job for that one.
yeah, Brinstar is like that's like if you open with Brinstar, it's like yeah, you're gonna hit 3 miles today. Um, all right, we got enough time to do a reading if you want to do a reading. What are you
Okay,
reading
let's do a
lately?
quick. Yeah, that's a good idea. So, okay, I started music. How about you start reading?
Uh,
That came out not the way I expected. Yeah, pretty sure
well,
you've already
without
started
you,
reading.
Rob, I never would be able to. So thank you. Um, reading, it's one of those things where, like a lot of things, like right now, I'm in a bad state of work-life balance and like a imbalanced state. So I haven't been reading as much as I would like to, and not even audiobooks.
Mm,
But Free Comic Book Day, which by the way, you and Kate did an awesome episode of the Art and Science Punks podcast talking about Free Comic Book Day. Um,
thank you.
it was fun to listen to you guys share your journeys with reading comics and then making comics later on. Um, but Free Comic Book Day, like I got a handful of books and read them all, and because like there's an immediacy to it. It's like today's the day, today's Free Comic Book Day. It's a holiday. We should get some comics and read some comics, and I did,
Mm,
and I got the Mutant Ninja Turtles book. And it was so good. And it was so good, and it just made me feel like pangs, kind of like the pangs of nostalgia of, oh yeah, I remember when I sat down and read. I should do that more. So, yeah, my reading
yeah,
was just like a handful of comic books last week, and that was the first time I've like read something beyond reading the news in months.
yeah,
Looking forward to getting back into it again when I'm done with this deadline.
yeah. I mean, being on a deadline really does change a variety of habits, and it's almost like when I am working toward a deadline, like what I reach for, it's like this is the most potent comfort food I have. I
Yeah.
I need it now, as if like I don't know, reaching for that grappling hook on a utility belt kind of thing. It's like this is it's the right tool. So like yeah. Anyway, like classic movies and things that are so comforting and energizing and the,
Yes.
it
Yeah.
becomes such a particular list. So yeah, that's really cool to just have even that quick visit, I guess, when you're deadlining. So I guess I empathize, and I don't know. Hope it doesn't keep going for too much longer. Huh?
Oh no, I'm almost done. I'm almost
Okay.
done. And then obviously I'm going to jump into another one, but well, which is a good thing. That's a good problem to have. Very good problem to
Sure.
have, and I'm very
Totally good
grateful.
problem to have. Yes.
But
Yep.
the next one won't be nearly as intense, so it will allow me to be a human being
Mm.
every once in a while. And I've got a book of Bradbury short stories that I'm dying to dig into.
Mm.
Anne recently got me a book of Southern folk tales, and I started reading a couple of them a few weeks back. And I don't know if I've ever gone into how much I love folk tales, and the marvelous sort of guileless lack of agenda other than to entertain. Like there's
Hmm.
no pretense of this is going to make you a better person or we're going to teach you about life. It's more like there was once a really clever rabbit and there was this really jerky, name another animal, porcupine, lizard,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And the lizard was being mean to the rabbit. Rabbit outsmarts lizard. Lizard gets killed, or lizard loses all his food, or lizard is homeless now. Rabbit wins. In this, there's no moralizing in it. It's more like these are stories that were just literally built to entertain, and maybe there's like some kind of like cultural coding going on in there at times. But and I was just talking about this with Jesse recently. Um, there's a film that is in the MST3K series, but I recently watched it without the MST3K stuff, and I just love it. It's called Jack Frost. I think we talked about this in a reading, watching, playing. And one of the
Mm.
things I love about it is that it's a Russian folk tale about Jack Frost, and the movie is actually told like a folk tale where they do these things that just they defy rational logic, but they feel at home in the context of a folk tale. Like there's a witch who's trying to put this handsome young prince into an oven to bake him. She says like, "Get on my
Right.
shovel, I'm gonna put you in the oven." He's like, "But I don't know how to sit on a shovel." She's like, "Oh, what's the world coming to? I'll show you how to sit on a shovel." So she sits on the shovel. Guess what he does? He puts her in the oven. That kind of thing. That kind of like kid logic that I just
Yeah.
adore. You know. Um,
Yeah, and really focused on the entertainment. It's that's a distinction that I think I've forgotten, honestly, because I tend to conflate the whole job of both folk tales and like fables, right?
right,
Which
right.
honestly, yeah, they're two really different things.
And I love the Chronicles of Narnia. Don't get me wrong. I love C.S. Lewis. I love that kind of storytelling, where stuff is coded in there. But there's something really utterly charming about something that's built just to entertain people, and the stuff that comes from like verbal, like oral traditions and things like that, are super fun. So yeah, I've only read it like a tiny little smidge of the stories in that book, but that's another one I'm just dying to crack open and dig deep into, and get lost in all these silly stories about birds going inside of elephant stomachs and then bursting out because they trick the elephant into eating it, kind of thing. Um,
Wow, it
uh,
sounds like an anime bird or something. That's a hardcore, like,
anyway, what have you been
battle
reading?
hardened bird. All right. Um okay, let's see. So I've recently gone through like a fresh comic reading spree, and part of it free comic book day related, but some of it just like I've um so I watched my eldest daughter read Mighty Jack and get utterly absorbed into it, and I'm like, okay, when she's willing to let me borrow it, I have to read that. Okay, awesome. And that's a book by Ben Hadke. Um, and it's it's great. Such a it's like an all ages Twilight Zone feeling thing, as far as these mysterious factors of like Jack and the plants and whatnot, and how and his neighbor, and how all this stuff they get connected and caught up in bigger things. Really good, really fun. I recently um, I also it's kind of funny. I watched my eldest daughter also read Ghosts, and I'm like, I need to read that. what and so then and I did. And it's and Ghosts, a book by Raina Telgemeier, and it was fantastic. Very very affecting and emotional story without being like that, like, I don't know, like, kind of playing on. um I didn't feel like I was being emotionally manipulated. Like, it just was a really, heartfelt, and a uh, cool story dealing with, do you believe in ghosts kind of thing. And I'm like, whatever, this isn't going to pull me in. And it didn't pull me in. So that's always fun when a story does that.
That's
Um,
awesome.
then recently let's see, when did I get? I think I got these two books the same day. I bought Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo, and also um, the Greg Schiegel's Picks Too Super for School on the same day. Picks
Mm.
Too Super for School. It's like kind of like, well, I know I'm going to read this with my daughters, kind of thing. So I've only started that, and I'm excited. It's like getting deeper into Greg's storytelling style. I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like a really um, uh, it. I had no idea as far as like his approach to presenting like these teenage situations, and so much, like all the dialogue and that kind of adventure, and sort of like when there's someone in a group of friends in high school has superpowers, and all that kind of drama and stuff that can play out. Really good. And we had him as a guest on the show very recently as well.
Mhm.
That was awesome. And then Stan Sakai's Usagi Yojimbo, I just bought a trade paperback volume 1, right?
Mhm.
So I know this has been out for a long time. It's probably been bundled in
Had
200
had
different
you read it
ways.
before?
No.
Oh, it's so good, right?
Oh my gosh, yes. Well, yes, it is. And I, it's weird. Like, many moons ago, I had a couple of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle figures. One of them was Usagi Yojimbo, but in a spacesuit. And I was like, that looks like a take no guff sassy rabbit. What's that going to be like? Someday I'll read that. It took me a long time to get to it, and it has nothing to do with a rabbit in a spacesuit.
Nope.
Nope. But I thought how interesting that the I don't know if the story continues to be played on in these small vignettes, right? But like they felt a little bit like the sort of folk tales you were describing.
Yeah, a little bit. Although there's like fable stuff built in there too.
Okay.
And he really does his research. He came to Ann Arbor a few years back and did a presentation, and he showed like the amount of research he does in order to write these stories, and it's intense. So like, I mean, I got it pulled up right here, like at UsagiYojimbo.com. Like you can see the rabbit's armor, right? It's like he's not fooling around. He knows what he's drawing.
Oh my gosh. The yeah, the detail and the kind of the fight scenes
Yeah.
and what is explicit, what is implicit, and it's stunning in the clarity, yet um so much action, so much is activity, and the relationships among all the different characters and what happens like when like something really goes down, right? I mean, essentially, what was Usagi Yojimbo is it like rabbit bodyguard, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's a Ronin samurai that is he definitely gets in fights with those swords, right? And so you have to expect that there's this kind of that kind of action, but it's fascinating how it's handled, and I'm stunned at and I don't know why I didn't read it until now. It's awesome.
It's one of
And
those things where it's always been. It feels like it's always been around. It feels like it's just always been there, and it's like, yeah, I should get to reading that sometime. And then you find out how much there is, and you see how good it is, and it's like, oh my gosh. Um, yeah, and I mean, it's been well documented on the show that like I tend to gravitate towards stories where the heroes try to find some other means to solve the problem. Um, there's something about Usagi Yojimbo that I think there's a solemnity to what he's doing that I think makes it the violence palatable to me. Like it never feels glorified. It never feels joyous that he's slicing through people. It feels like if I must, then I must kind of thing. And there's something about that grim determination that I find really appealing. Um, yeah, he's a great character.
that's a great description too. Yeah, and then it's I find it really approachable because it's not this like overblown 90s style. Every letter looks like and is glowing with the power of like a volcano or
Yeah.
whatever, and everyone's got flaming pants, but like it's the but it
I don't
has
even know what
this,
that means.
I don't know, when I in the 90s I always envied flaming pants, so that's to me it's a symbol. I don't know, probably I don't know if that communicates to a broad audience, but it means something to me. And encapsulates a decade. And the anyway, but yeah, so it has that flavor it has an intensity without that sort of glitz, and I don't know. Anyway, it's yeah, I'm super impressed.
Yeah,
So,
it's absolutely fabulous, and it deserves all the acclaim it gets. So yeah, Usagi Yojimbo,
mhm.
great reading. There's
All right.
several like omnibuses out, these gigantic collections of the stuff. So like, there's plenty to read. Um, so
Yep. I enjoyed my first taste, but I imagine like we might want to, you know, explore this curveball thing since
yeah, we should.
we've
So okay,
thoroughly explored our
we talked about some things that we read and we
yeah.
watch and we play and we do. Now it's time to talk about what we've been doing this week. What's been going on in the last week, and what are we
Mhm.
wrestling with, engaging with, grappling with.
Mhm.
But before we do that, we got to thank some people who make this show possible. And the folks that we're talking about specifically are the people who support us on Patreon. What is Patreon? Well, it's sort of like a Kickstarter, but for ongoing projects, right? So it's a way for you to vote for us, to say, like, I believe in this thing, I like what these guys do, and I want it to continue. And you can pledge like as little as $1 a month, and if enough people do that, that makes this show a sustainable thing. And we want to thank 5 people who have been supporting us on Patreon. First up, Mike White. Now, Mike White makes comics that you can read on Instagram. Post Instagram comics at FE Follies on Instagram. Thank you, Mike, for helping to make the show possible. Jesse Kaufman, who we were just talking to a few minutes ago, who said, yes, indeed, let's get the Friday game night thing going. Let's do it. And you can find Jesse at Jesse Kaufman on Twitter, Kauffman. Jonathan Warrenson. Jonathan, couldn't find a Twitter handle for you, so update your Patreon profile if you want us to give a shout out to that. But in any case, we do appreciate you supporting us on Patreon. And Shawnee Redfearn, at Shawnee Redfearn on Twitter. And finally, Todd Lozon. Todd Lozon on Twitter. And I still have to design a He-Man character named Lozon, because that totally sounds like a He-Man character name. But if you want to get a shout out or support us on Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/leanintoart. There you will find the shows that we produce every week, as well as the extra leans, which are only for Patreon supporters now, and possibly even a Friday night game night at patreon.com/leanintoart. Anything that I missed, Rob?
Not really. This is sometimes when you do this whole Patreon thing, it's not that you're looking for this this one-time big event. You're saying, like, I want this to keep happening. I just want to put some energy toward it, and I think that's a great thing that Patreon helps us do. So thank you for supporting us, or if you're about to go out there, thank you for that too.
And Troy, Shadowing Tronics in the chat, just said he just sent Rob a tweet to Space Usagi. Just learned they made a pilot for the cartoon. Really?
Oh, funny.
You could have a crossover with Bucky O'Hare. All right.
Yeah, there's some conflict going on there in that creative space, but okay, cool.
And then Star Bunny, and then maybe some of the characters from Boulder and Fleet. We can all get together and have a big animal adventure jamboree. But time to do the second half of the show.
3, 2, 1, contact!
And time to talk about something else. Talk about Curveball. What have you been working on, Rob? What's been going on with you this week?
Oh, well, I have been those side project things I'm working on. Let's see. So I'm going with the flow with a few different creative work streams that are not deadline driven. So, but they are prioritized. So I try to put attention to the a Unity game that I'm working on. So I'm teaching myself how to make a game in Unity 3D. It's essentially the successor in the market, in my opinion, to Adobe Flash. Adobe Flash let you sort of work as a visual person and make interactive stuff, and then maybe you do animations, or maybe make it just a variety of things that was just with this visual emphasis. But then it let you build content that would be runnable on a bunch of different kinds of devices. Well, Unity is doing that now, and it's taking it into a 3D context as its primary approach, but then it also allows for two-dimensional content too. And I'm focusing on using it as a two-dimensional tool at the moment. And so studying that, I'm working through like another round of tutorials, and also prototyping a game as I go. I'm not in the great habit of sharing some of this work as I'm working along. I need to work on that, but because there's some cool things in indie game community where there's some support and encouragement if you do things like Screenshot Saturday, where take a screenshot, share what you're working on. That's on my radar too, but haven't got around to it. And I'm also developing some stories. So
Can I dig at that a little bit? The whole working on the sharing in progress thing. This is a
yeah,
topic we've
dig,
we've
dig.
we've talked about this in the show a lot and like explored like sort of like both sides. Like, well, do you share as you go along, or do you wait for one big reveal kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anybody who's followed me on Instagram or social media knows that where I stand on it. I love trickling out little pieces of it, and I don't think it spoils anything. I think if anything, it helps build interest. And at the very least, it just shows people that like here's a showcase of what I'm capable of all the time, even if it is a work in progress.
Mm-hmm.
But on the other hand, I mentioned running earlier, and I got the Runkeeper app, and whenever you finish a little jog or whatever, or bike ride or whatever, it's like, hey, good job, you did a thing. You want to tell your friends on Facebook? And I say, no, why would I want to do that? This is for me. This is my time. I don't need to be telling everybody else. It's like, but we'll put this picture and we'll put all the details of your physical activity on there so you can share your progress with other people. I'm like, I see the appeal, but no, I don't want to do it. So, question for you: are you falling somewhere on that spectrum, or is just a bandwidth thing of like you want to prepare like something that's worth sharing that like looks a certain way?
Well, I mean, I'm definitely sweaty, not camera ready, and um, not and somewhat disappointed in what I actually performed. So I don't know. It's hard to share stuff. No, I'm just whatever. Um,
No, but that's
uh,
true, right? It's like I have done the sweaty selfie afterwards for my own purposes. Like I have like the
sure.
photos that get saved and they get saved in my camera roll, so I look at them later and be like, oh, there's my progress, and whoa, oh, boy, you look terrible there, Jersey. But it's like I don't feel any desire to make any of my friends look at that.
Mhm. Well, I
But
mean, it's funny. It's like that's there's probably some truth behind the jokiness there, but in part, it's like a separate effort, and that's what sometimes is tough as far as budgeting effort, where I literally need to now go make supper for the family, or then like
sure,
that's it, and I worked up to the second where I need to run and go do that. And then the sharing aspect, it's like, well, yep, later in the evening, I'll have some bandwidth to do that. But then I don't feel like it. So then I don't. And you know what I mean? Where it's like when I'm fired up and I'm in that mode and that's my primary task and whatnot,
yep,
I
yep,
need to somehow work it into that. And
yep. And when I'm drawing, it's simple because like just like screen cap, crop, share, right? It's
mm-hmm.
super effortless. So like it's easy for me to go like that looks nice. I'm glad I'm like the way that turned out. Crop, share, and then I just walk away and don't think about it again. And if I did wait until the evening, I probably wouldn't. So
Yeah.
removing some of that friction, because like, does it take that long to do the screen cap and the share for you?
No, it doesn't. But like to me, it's like what do I? Okay, then I start thinking like, what am I trying to share with this? Right? Like, I am certainly not going to shy away, and I have engaged in the whole. Hi, I still exist. I make stuff, and look, this is a stuff here. You know, and I will do that, and I don't regret it, and I love that other people do it as well because it sends a signal into the world that like we're making stuff, and each of us is not alone, and those are good things. But then I get caught up in like, well, what exactly should I share that is like the most, I don't know, interesting or useful or fun, right? And so if I just sort of go by whim, I could get something out probably, right? But then, with this game, it's like, well, it looks very prototypey. Is a screenshot saying anything? Maybe. What about an animated GIF? I don't know. Like I could do that. What should I show as this, in this animation? Do I need to show? What should I? There's all these questions, right? So it's easy to get caught up in that. And then also, just be focused on like, well, there's this other problem I'm trying to solve. I need to get that done, and now I've run out of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel that friction. I totally see what you're talking about. But gosh, and I'm not trying to solve a problem for you necessarily, but it's
Oh,
just
feel
like
free.
fix me. Everybody fix me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, try, right? I mean,
Yeah.
nothing gonna, doesn't it may not take,
I'm just
but
thinking
I'm
about
open
like
to input is what I mean.
so like when I look at shots like this was from a freelance gig recently that I posted on my
Yeah.
Instagram, and it's like is it is it really exciting? Not really. It's just a picture of a kid looking angry. And I think I put the caption was like time to draw some defiant kids, you know.
Yeah.
Uh but it turned out okay. So like I wonder if like in like your case, like does it need to be an animated GIF? Could it be just like could it even be like a piece of a corner of the screen kind of thing where it's like that rock looks nice. I don't know. Is it
No, you're right. Yes, you're totally right. There are a variety of interesting moments that I could do a screenshot, and that is like as far as unit of interesting shareable content, something visual is if you especially you're working in a visual medium, it can be pretty abundant and available, and it's a matter of picking what to show more than
Mhm.
anything, and especially if you're not making it that extra layer of complicated like I've been debating. So because then the extra layer of complicated is to say I should publish a version of this, right? And it's like, well, okay, I should set up an itch.io thing and then what platforms am I going to build for and I'm like, well, it's not really a good game yet. And then yeah, spin, time to make supper.
Yeah.
But no, like honestly, like just keeping it focused on the whole. What I'm hearing is just putting out a signal instead of worrying too much about what's in the signal.
Yeah, yeah. No, I don't worry. I try not to worry about what's in the signal. But and I think another layer of this, for at least for me, and I'll share this and see if this resonates at all with what you're talking about in your personal experience. But there is on a big project, like for instance, like the book that Ann and I are finishing right now. There's like a long period where I don't feel like I can say whether or not this is any good. Not because like I don't have the authority to say it, but because I just it feels so unformed still, even when all the penciling and inking is done, even when the colors flats are almost done, even when the color's almost finished. Like, you know, I'm looking at this thing so granularly for so long, and I'm just trying to meet my benchmarks, right? Meet my milestones in
Mm-hmm.
time that I have no sense of perspective over whether or not it's really good. Like I need to come back to this thing 6 months from now and look at it, and then I'll have a sense of like, oh, hey, it's pretty good, or whoa, I wish I would have done that better. But either way, that perspective doesn't come until I've distanced myself from a little bit. When you're in it, again, you're just trying not to drown. So if that's the case,
Hmm.
I don't feel like I'm a good judge anyway to determine what's shareable and what's not. So therefore, the only signal I have is a gut reaction of that's neat. And really literally as simple as that. Like I don't think like that's well constructed. Those lines are very smooth or oh, that gesture is very it communicates exactly what I hope. We started this episode with this whole idea of like creating a narrative after we make something. My narrative is as simple as, huh, that's neat. That looked neat. So like, I can pull up another one where it's like, I finished shading some of Anne's colors on one of the pieces, because I'm contributing to some of the shading, and it was literally, I didn't think anything beyond then. Oh, that bear looks cute, doesn't he? And so I was like, screen cap it, just send it out. I don't think that like I did like a magnificent job of shading. As a matter of fact, I think the shading looks kind of hasty, but the bear looked cute. Okay, he can go out there to be a part of that signal, right?
Yeah, and honestly, it's really funny because that same kind of like you can call it hasty, but you could also call it like vibrant with there's a lot of life in those lines, you know.
Yeah.
the strokes of the
loose.
shading.
Yeah, loose and like there's some kind of fluidity to it. Maybe. I mean, that'll be the kind of thing where I'd have to talk about it like after I've had some distance from it. But at the moment,
yeah, exactly. So if you hear those voices, do they even come up now? Are you thinking like, oh, now I'm starting to get, public television with what I'm this thing, and I've got to analyze it more, or are you just going like, oh no, quiet now? Huh?
Yeah.
That's neat or not?
Yeah, neat or not. That's it. That's all. I mean, it's partially a function of bandwidth. It's partially I don't have time to process it any further than that. Right? Right now, I'm just trying not to drown. But it's also a practice thing. It's also a practice thing. Like, I know that if I stop to look at it too much, I'm going to change its state. And I'm going to change the way I interact with it. Keep in this flow of what you got right now, because for better or worse, at least it'll be consistent if you keep at it with this this level of attention. Does that make sense?
It really does. I mean, that does convey a lot of trust and a lot of it's essentially, believing that there has to be some kind of evaluation of what you're putting out, and sometimes having too much time to critique doesn't lead to better output,
right?
Either. Right? So it's really, I mean, your time to critique is all the thousands of pages you've put out before these pages, right?
Language I used on the Galaxy Super Adventure show months ago was, I often would confuse preparation and analysis with protecting myself from doing a poor job. And there's ultimately, I mean, in order to ship, there's like a certain level of letting go that you have to do. Otherwise, you'll never ship, right? This is. I'm not like inventing, wisdom here. This is as old as art itself. Eventually, you have to like accept that I can only do so much with the resources and the frictions and limitations that face me. So, with that in mind, let's just make a thing. And if I notice that anything is cute along the way, or neat, or along the way, those can be snippets that breadcrumbs that I throw out there. Because if I'm reacting to it that way. By the way, sidebar, I wonder if our final thought can be about laughing at one's own jokes, because I had a question about that. But like anything that I react to, probably somebody else is going to react to as well. So that'll be the breadcrumb trail I lead to the thing, is all these little bits where I went, neat, like that.
Which, I mean, through practice of other prior sharing endeavors and podcasting and other, ways of getting your work out, like there's empirical evidence in a way, like experiential evidence in a way, at least, that backs that up. So
how would this relate to an intense project like a game where there are so many different kinds of assets that you're creating? Not just visual assets, but other kinds of things that maybe aren't quite as visual.
Well, I mean, there would be ways to share those as well, because if you just much like making a comic, the process is helped by separating concerns. It's like, well, if I want to highlight a sound, but I'm going to post it on Instagram, I can just, play a sound in the background while I take a video and post that. I mean, there's ways to get it out there if you're willing to emphasize the sort of getting it out there and sharing. I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try that sort of, this is neat.
That's the rubric, the rubric.
That's it. Very simple. And then that's neat could be whatever. And I'll share something as easily as I can share it. Like I won't back down. I'll take a photo of code if I want to. And that's fine.
You can't stop me. Don't even try.
Nobody can stop me. It won't be useful for anybody other than for me. I will think, that's neat. And then I'll also know probably someone out there will get some kind of value out of that because of that instinct.
Well, not just that, though, but I also wonder, I mean, like, to be serious now, I wonder if there is, like, another layer of challenge in that is, like, can you take an artful picture of code? Right?
Well, of course I'll be thinking this. Because I'll be thinking, like, well, what code should I take a picture of? Right. Now that I decided to do that, that's so freeing. allow me to shackle myself to more concerns, right? So yeah, there's always more concerns to weigh yourself down with, but they can help too. So I guess my heuristic is, that's neat. Let the concerns swarm me, and if I can still move and click the submit button, it's okay.
So we came back around to like a bunch of little mini bosses in the way of the final. We didn't completely remove the friction.
Nope. But no, it's directional. You can't fix me, Jerzy.
I know.
I
I don't
know,
want to.
No. We're all on the same page.
Oh, so do we want to get to final thought then?
I think
Caleb is
so.
in the chat again. Let's see. I took a bunch of photos of code this week. I
Oh.
also have artful pictures of code from a few months ago. Well, leave it to
That's
Caleb
so awesome.
to call me on my challenge.
Yep. Okay. Well, I need to do some artful code pics.
Artfulcodepics.com.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Or hashtag artfulcodepics is what like most major network comedians would say.
Mm-hmm. That's a sane choice, because if you get into the whole registering domains based on your ideas trap, anyway,
yeah,
separate topic.
Yeah, that is a way to siphon off hundreds of dollars a year from
hashtag before domain, depending on your level of commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, I think it's time for a final thought. Because it occurred to me today. I have for years have apologized for laughing at my own jokes. Although, in my defense, I'm an easy audience. I show up ready to laugh.
I've benefited from this trait for 6 years, Jerzy. Thank you.
There was a podcast interview recently that called the Clients from Hell podcast, where they were kind enough to interview me, and yeah, I did a lot. I showed up ready to laugh at that episode. I went back and reviewed it a little bit. I was like, geez.
That's awesome.
Okay, but in a minute we're going to talk a little bit about. I want to close with this thought about like laughing at your own jokes, being pleased with your work, and like some of the stigmas attached to that, because I've got a chip on my shoulder about it. But before we do that, I thank a few more people who make this show possible. Another sponsorship, if you will, and those sponsors are us. We make stuff. I make a comic called BoulderandFleet.com. I'll keep this short and sweet. It's about a bear and a bird who go from town to town, help people with their problems. If you're new to the show, the big idea that I'm exploring with it is this notion of pacifism. Heroes who try to solve problems without resorting to violence, even though they have immense strength and speed. You could level the whole room with one swipe of your arm, but what if you really, really hate that kind of conflict? And I've got a page pulled up here from a scene from one of the stories where there is a couple of competitive eaters show up in the tale. It's only like a 4-page sequence, but in the story, it's like this whole Daniel San, Mr. Miyagi kind of arc with these two characters, where like the young character who's trying to learn how to eat, as fast as he can, really wants to live up to his teacher. And the reason I threw this in is that in the sequence, he starts doing like martial arts moves of competitive eating, like bust, stop, gobble, and he's chewing on a corn cob really fast. I follow Major League Eating online because I'm actually like fascinated by competitive eating, and they were actually posting pictures of people eating corn cobs, cobs of corn in different styles. And I was like, whoa, I didn't know they really did that, but they do. And that was in my comic as well, BoulderandFleet.com. Rob, you make a game.
I do. It's on iPhone and iPad. It's called This Panda Needs You, and it's essentially, do you love cute pandas? Do you love to stack blocks? This game, it's for you. There's over 50 levels of different puzzles and like challenge that ramps up nice and slow, where you, in a very mellow, calm game experience, help a panda stack up blocks that were once just fine. A cloud knocked them over. You put them back to the way they were, and then keep doing it. And that's available at in the iTunes App Store, and you can learn more about it at this-panda.com.
And if you're here because you like the way we think about stuff more than the stuff that we make, that's fine. That's fair enough. This is a thing that we make. And we make more things, more videos that you can get at leanintoart.com/workshops. Videos that you can download at a price of your choosing. They are online workshops. But if you already did that, you already downloaded all the workshops there, and you're like, what else can I do for you guys to let you know that I appreciate what you do? Something you do that costs you nothing but a few moments of your time is going to your podcatcher where you listen to the show. If you listen to the audio version, giving it a 5-star review, or if you're watching the video right now, giving it a thumbs up helps more people find the show. It raises, our relevance in search. And then, Rob, we have a new sponsor this week.
Yeah, we do have a sponsor. A new sponsor, the comic 7-inch Kara. And this is a comic by Becca Hilburn. It's amazing. It's a beautifully rendered in watercolor comic about this character, 7-inch Kara, that is a miniature girl, and a friendly kitten is in there too, and a human teenager who they find this common ground with food and exploration. It's for middle grade and easy readers who enjoy kind-hearted stories and gentle adventure. So it's from this comic artist, Becca Hilburn, she longed for this kind of comic when she was growing up, and she found it impossible to locate. So Becca believes strongly that kids deserve quality entertainment, and she's doing her best to make it available for the kids who need it. This amazing comic, 7-inch Kara, can be found at 7inchkara.com. You can read a new installment every Friday at 7inchkara.com. And even better, you can hold 112 pages of this awesome comic, 7-inch Kara, in your hands. Every page illustrated beautifully in watercolor. Again, it's you haven't seen this kind of approach. It's super rare. And I mean, it's beautifully rendered in watercolor. You can purchase it at nattosoup.com/shop/Kara-comic. And that is Kara spelled with a K. So that's Kara-comic. And of course, we will link to this in the show notes. Jersey, I've encountered 7-inch Kara when I bought a copy for my eldest daughter, and she has loved reading it.
And you can meet Becca at the Ann Arbor Comic Arts Festival this June as well, where you can get your copy of 7-inch Kara.
That's awesome.
A2caf.com, June 17th and 18th. I'll be there too.
That's awesome. And so again, you can find this awesome comic, 7-inch Kara, at 7inch, spelled out INCH, Kara.com. And of course, you can buy the comic and hold this awesome work in your hands at nattosoup.com/shop/Kara-comic.
And thanks to Becca Hilburn for supporting the show.
Thank you, Becca.
All right, time for final thought, Rob. And Vanillion is in the chat, and it's so good to see you there. I didn't realize that you would be checking in the show tonight. Old internet friendly type. This is me getting uptight about terminology. We're friendly on the internet and have been so for a long time. Vanillion says, a cartoonist who doesn't laugh at his or her own jokes is like a chef who won't eat his or her own cooking. Suspicious. That's me laughing at you, or not you, at your words. But it's like I don't know why, but for years I felt this urge to apologize for laughing at my own jokes, and even when I'm reading my own work and being like, oh, that's really good, that made me laugh. Oh, that's shameful. You shouldn't laugh at your own jokes. Your jokes are for other people to laugh at, after all. What the heck is that all about? I don't know. I haven't done any research to figure out what this literally only occurred to me this afternoon as I was thinking about talking about tonight's topics, and also noticing that I was laughing at something that I said. But why should we apologize for that? Isn't that tantamount to apologizing for liking our own work?
It seems related. I mean, let's see. I think the argument for that perspective would be maybe a sheltered view is dangerous to your creative work, right? So if you're only looking at your stuff and laughing at your stuff. Maybe that's a problem, right?
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I'm trying to consider like how could that be a detriment?
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember, I mean, it was a few years ago, but I think I was creating some materials for the workshop, turning jokes into comics, Laughing Yeti, Monkey Spaghetti, and I drew a, so you see a formation of birds, they fly, they kind of have this V, right? And then, well, what if the front bird? It's a formation of ducks. They're flying south, right? What if the front bird farts? What happens, right? The birds in the back. It's terrible, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm drawing a duck farting, right?
Right. I remember
And
this.
drawing a duck farting made me. I had a hard time finishing the drawing. I was laughing so hard, right?
Right.
Yeah, and yeah. Anyway, that's to me, I found that as a signal that this was this had potential, right? So
Yeah.
like especially when I would add a certain detail that would make me laugh a little more, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like writing poot in the middle of the cloud.
It's better.
Yeah, it's better. And that kind of thing. And then I'm like, well, okay, wait a minute. This fart jokes aren't that funny. Why? You know, is this okay to spread to people who are attending your workshop? And I'm like,
Yeah, this something that
Yeah.
you said there reminded me of like this is actually like one of the potential directions we could have gone tonight and we didn't. And I take full credit for that because I was the one who kind of steered us where we went initially by asking you about your week and digging at a topic. But
Yep.
one of the topics on my mind this week was this whole idea of self-directed dogmas and like when you're talking about like fart humor, I just don't do that. I've also had friends say to me in the past like, "There's no such thing as a good adventure story with a ninja in it." I'm like, what? maybe you haven't yet to read one, but like that's weird, right? Like, why? What is it about ninjas that make all adventure stories bad when they show up? Surely there must be somebody of sufficient talent to create a story where a ninja appears that you would enjoy. Like, these weird, strange, these dogmas that we come up with of this is the way it's done, and I have the opinion on this, and I'm going to enforce it, and I'm going to get very, very cross if I see it not being adhered to.
I feel like you're. This is terrible. I got to do a snark disclaimer, so snark's coming. I feel like you're describing the entire writing style guide for a whole swath of medium article writers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I have a giant assumption that I express well. I entertain myself, and some other folks enjoy this perspective. It's unquestioned, but here it is.
Yeah.
You know, here's some. Maybe it's authoritative because it sounds fun and approachable or whatever. But and here I am writing a long, article about this. Yeah, I mean, I guess that stuff works until you think about it.
Right. Yeah. I think that was your
Um,
response to me when I texted you. You said like, how did you phrase it? You said something about like our beliefs work until they no longer work and think and usually that happens when we think hard about it, um, beliefs.
Right, and and I do think your question, I didn't anticipate coming up in this podcast because of where we went, but
Yeah.
like, because it's a big to me that's a big topic. The whole idea of your own sort of your beliefs get you through, and they're necessary. You wake up, encounter your adventures and challenges throughout the your waking hours, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up the next day with this kind of meaning and framing of that's so bolstered by such deep belief. And yet, like, what happens when you you know d- for some folks, like, questioning that is not a useful endeavor. That is like flat out like, what, why? And if that works for them, okay. But
Or in my case, you find yourself screaming like a madman about something that you hold very dear until you hear yourself screaming about it and going like, why am I screaming like this?
But like literally, like what you described, like what? Okay, so reacting to like, um, I'm having a backlash moment about writing a fart joke and
Yeah.
why, but then noticing that is a thing that creates the opportunity to examine it and then, um, practicing some kind of reflective approach in unboxing, whether it's very generative, like you just get a bunch of ideas out of your head, then look at it, or you do it in some sequence of stages, you interview yourself or whatever. You have a chance through that just that inherent foothold where you're willing and open and acting on that examination of the observation, right? So it's not, anyway, it's not simple, and to me it seems like a um, personal worldview and habit sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a big topic that maybe we can do as like another like half episode in the future.
Okay.
Let's dog ear that because I think that's an interesting place to go.
So, but laughing at your own jokes is kind of like a subset of that, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the reaction some people have to it, right? So yeah, this idea that I accepted it as a truth that there's something inherently shameful in finding my own jokes funny, right?
Mm.
And I think you provided a little bit of extra context around that. And also like yeah, like this that ties into what we were talking about earlier, I think, about this idea of like noticing when something's cute or makes you go like, ah, that's a little piece that I can share. I think is related to being okay with laughing at your own jokes. Right? Jesse's chiming in. I think it's harder to justify not laughing at your own jokes unless you're playing the straight deadpan character. Well, yeah. Also, you'll get to see Jesse at A2CAF as well, and that's a guy who laughs at his jokes. Jesse and I, when you get us together, it's a lot of laughing. And Shadowing Tronics, Troy is in the chat too. He says, back to the friend who said that there's no such thing as a good story with a ninja. He says, your friend is wrong. Ninjas are awesome. Every 80s kid knows that. That's true. American Ninja 3. Come on, Max.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I'm right. I'm so like ninja saturated. I'm practically like ninja Kool-Aid. You know what I mean? Like it's certainly in my DNA. So, but at the same time, like this is, some folks will approach finding their own, like, recognize my voice and how distinctive it is because of how, and I'm sure I've done that, like, but it's an approach, but I will and so it's really funny, like I'm working one of I'm working on essentially an iteration, like it's a different version of, well, not a different version. It started out where I'm going to make a game that's based on Underwater Tomato Ninja. It's going to be the same thing, and now it's evolved, and so yep, it's a game, it's got ninja in it, whatever. But I do think, like, oh, are ninjas played out? How long do ninjas get in the world to be interesting and cool, whatever? Anyway, so like I'll think about that no matter what, really, because
what's
like
the statute of limitations on ninjas anyway?
Are they done? and
I don't know, I'll go to American Apparel tomorrow and see if there's any ninjas on any of the shirts there.
Well, yeah, sure. There's ninja fashion. Tough to say.
All right.
Okay.
I think we walked around this one enough, at least for this week, which is to say that we'll be back in a week, next Thursday. Thursdays at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, 9 p.m. Central. Usually record for like an hour and change, and we do it live so that you can interact with us the way the kind folks who are in the chat room tonight did. But the show will also be archived at leanintoart.com and patreon.com/leanintoart. I'll look forward to seeing you guys there. And until next time, I have been Jerzy Drozd of leanintoart.com and Jerzy on Twitter.
And I've been Rob Stenzinger of leanintoart.com and Rob Stenzinger on Twitter.
And okay, bye.
Show notes for this episode can be found at leanintoart.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at the user leanintoart, and you can reach us via email at leanintoart@gmail.com. And remember, leaners aren't wieners. Thanks for listening.
Okay, I'm going to shut off the stream. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.